Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver offers a unique take on the streets of New York and of mental illness. The combined potency of Robert De Niro's acting and Martin Scorsese's directing blend into a truly different view from that of many movies. This film stands among the very few in a preservation list of the Library of Congress due to its dynamic and prolific themes. One of the many elements that Scorsese used to accomplish his vision was that of lighting. We can see in scenes like this one how every person is bathed in the lights of New York City, creating a different level of tension each time we see them. While I'll mainly be focusing on Taxi Driver and the lighting thereof, I did want to compare the lighting in this movie to that of another prolific movie of the 70s, The Godfather. In this scene, we are shown Don Corleone in the opening of the film. Frank Coppola chose to let his character command the light in the sense that the scene is conforming to him. While we have outside a perfectly colorful and bright day and a nice wedding going on, this room that would otherwise be unthreatening is darkened and it's conforming to the character. It's making us know that he has inherent power whether we're seeing it or not. Martin Scorsese went a different route, allowing his characters to be affected by the light rather than commanding it themselves. It is this scene, and more specifically this single shot, that I wanted to focus on for the rest of this video. This is obviously a very close-up shot, and it's meant to display Travis's feelings while simultaneously hinting at a rage and a murder spree that both are not far off. While Travis hasn't gone over the edge yet, we already know he doesn't sleep. He also has obsessive tendencies, as we learn with Betsy. The inner monologue he gives throughout the film, and in this scene, wants us to be with him and root for him on this journey, but the lighting tells another story. The fantasy is as real as the reality are the words we get over this shot. Now this may be alluding to multiple things, but what stood out the most to me was the fantasy Travis was creating for himself. This scene really stuck out to me, because even though there are other scenes of other characters, and even Travis himself bathed in different shades of light, for example the green lights of the city later on from the neon, this one is really hinting at the murder and the end of the film. It's hinting that it's not going to end great for him, and it's not going to be just a happily ever after that everyone's going to walk away clean from. Another thing that really stood out to me was how the scene utilizes suspense and build-up. Scorsese has a very different way of using violence in this movie and in all of his movies, and he makes it stand out. In Travis Bickle, we are given the perfect vessel for Scorsese's violence and artwork. Unlike horror movies that play on your fears, the climax of Taxi Driver fuels those fears by not only showing you how easily this could happen in real life, but by giving you a look behind the curtain of mental breakdown. That brings us back to this shot right here. Like so many other shots that are bathed in red in cinema, this one is of course hinting at the blood that is yet to come. But even more so, it's hinting at what Scorsese's trying to do with the character. What we see and what we're hearing and his inner monologue, what he's trying to tell us, may not necessarily reflect what we're seeing on the screen. And back then, I think that was more of a tale of radicalization, whereas now it's a cautionary reminder of how dangerous our world can get. And Travis seeks danger. He becomes known as the taxi driver that is going around to the bad neighborhoods. He's driving African Americans, which the other taxi drivers are really hesitant on doing. As he progresses, and as this scene shows us, the red light is symbolizing danger that he's looking for, on top of how he's perceiving the world from inside his little cab. And sometimes, even though we might forget, he is a Vietnam veteran, just like these guys right here. They were kind of sent home from a war where they weren't glorified as heroes like the previous wars, World War I, World War II, all those. They were not seen as heroes, and they weren't really given the necessary tools to cope with mental illnesses that may come, be it from shell shock, PTSD, whatever you want to call it. Travis Bickle is definitely one of those people, and of course, unfortunately in his case, he breaks out in violence, as some of the real-life Vietnam veterans have in the news. So I think Travis Bickle is an extension of that, and he's kind of the worst-case scenario. Like I said before, a bit of a cautionary tale. He really shows what can happen if an unstable veteran, or really honestly any capable person with a gun, what they're capable of in the wrong hands, what they can do, and what mental illness can drive a man to go toward. And Scorsese is a real master of the character in terms of directing and filmmaking. Most of his movies, first of all, they're not ridiculous, they're not fantastical. There's no elements in them such as like a superhero movie where we know that wouldn't be happening in real life. all of Scorsese's films are pretty well grounded in reality, and he's a real master of the subtle nuances because he lets his characters do the telling. A lot of authors rather, and a lot of filmmakers, they let exposition do the talking. They explain things in ways that it's a convenient way out sometimes. Martin Scorsese does not do that. He prefers to let his characters and the scenes that they're around kind of tell you the tale of what's going to happen while giving you subtle hints as to what may come next. Though my main argument focuses around Martin Scorsese's use of lighting, and particularly in the one scene of him bathed in the red light from I believe it was the stoplight, or rather the neon, this is another scene that really backs up my argument of how he's using lighting and the subtle nuances of the character to tell you the tale. Travis Bickle, he's watching these things, he's doing the finger gun, which of course becomes the later gun in the previous shot. And the lighting of the movie theater, of course all eyes are on him, and we're seeing how he's reacting to these scenes. And that brings us back to this shot right here. Of course I've already previously discussed how the blood red of the light over his skin signifies further violence to come and such. But the last thing about the shot that I wanted to talk about was the use of Robert De Niro's acting and his eyes. We're seeing him observing the city around him, and I don't think he quite knows what to make of it. And that's definitely a credit to De Niro's acting, because he's steeled in this position here. He's frustrated by the scum of the city, as he actually puts it in an earlier scene in the movie. And he's not sure what to do about it. He doesn't have the tools to cope, mentally speaking. And of course that just makes it all devolve into the huge mess in the shootout that we see later. But this really, the eyes here are really what does it. You can kind of see, and maybe it's just a little subtle thing in De Niro's acting, but this man is not well. So as I'm wrapping up here, I just think that scene was a real testament to Scorsese's directing, first of all, and his use of lighting, but also how that's just foreshadowing everything that's yet to come. I think that the terms of radicalization, of course, have been thrown around when discussing and reviewing this movie. And really, Travis Bickle is, of course, a dangerous man, but he's also, one might label him today as a terrorist. A man goes off with a gun and so on and so forth. And so, again, really big testament to how Martin Scorsese lets his characters do the talking for him. Like I was talking about previously in The Godfather, the character's commanding the light, whereas in this one, the light is affecting the character. And so I think that blend of De Niro's acting and then the streets of New York slowly driving him insane really were a powerful thing that made this movie work.